And of course, senators will be asking about the murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
But attention will turn to the killing of the journalist, and our next guest has already referred to today's briefing regarding that killing as, quote, the ultimate cover-up. Joining us now is Democratic Senator Bob Menendez. He is ranking member on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thanks very much for taking the time this morning.
Good to be with you.
So let me begin with the briefing here and the absence of the director of the CIA, Gina Haspel. You have said that this is a problem for the briefing. Of course, she has listened to that audio tape, which is some of the key evidence of not only the nature of this murder, but who's behind this murder. What is your reaction to her not being there today?
Well, to me, the fact that Gina Haspel, as the director of the CIA, who has made, I understand from all published reports, a determination that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia was involved in the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi, is a critical element, and it is a cover-up not to have her there. I don't want to hear a characterization by the Secretary of Defense or the Secretary of State. I want to hear the actual evidence by the person who went to Turkey, heard ultimately the audio versions of what happened, and other evidence that the CIA has deduced. And so it's an affront to the Senate that has important decisions to make on foreign policy not to have her there.
You would think that she would want to be there. A U.S. official told our colleague Pamela Brown she's not going because it's a policy-oriented meeting on Yemen and wouldn't be something that the CIA would typically be involved in. Okay. Let's get your reaction to what the Secretary of State, who will be in the room today, Mike Pompeo, writes this morning in an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal, quote, "Is it any coincidence that the people using the Khashoggi murder as a cudgel against President Trump's Saudi Arabia policy are the same people who supported Barack Obama's rapprochement with Iran, a regime that killed thousands worldwide, including hundreds of Americans, and brutalized its own people? Where was this echo chamber," he writes, "where were these avatars of human rights when Obama gave the mullahs pallets of cash to carry out their work as the world's largest state sponsor of terror?" Perhaps he should talk to Senator Lindsey Graham. That aside, what will you ask him today, Mike Pompeo, about the killing of Jamal Khashoggi?
Well, I'll ask him, how is it that we are willing to turn a blind eye to a vicious attack and ultimately the killing of a United States permanent resident, a journalist in the world, in order to say that our relationship with Saudi Arabia is more important. Yes, Saudi Arabia is an important relationship, but at the end of the day, if we allow our allies with impunity to kill others simply because we have an interest, then we forego everything about what the United States is important in the world, and we understand that those allies who observe democratic and human rights values are more long-standing and more valuable to us than an instantaneous need with the Saudis, who have their own interests in continuing to fight extremism in the region, as well as Iran. So we don't have to forego the very essence of what America is all about in terms of democracy and human rights as a beacon to the world, and for which those values sustain us in our foreign policy interests in order to continue Saudi Arabia's part of a coalition against global terrorism.
Senator, you note something important, a distinction that Secretary Pompeo did not, which is the difference between Iran and Saudi Arabia is Saudi Arabia is a close U.S. ally. Presumably there is a relationship there where the U.S. can speak to them about issues like this. I want to ask you a question. Is it your view that by not penalizing, not holding Saudi leaders to account for this, that not only Saudi Arabia, but other police states take this as a signal it's okay to do the same in the future, to murder their critics even abroad?
Absolutely. This is a global message that if you have some interest with the United States that you can bargain on, you can do anything that you want with impunity. That's the message we've sent to Putin, that the president doesn't seem to have a spine to turn, to face Putin and his violation of the international order. That's the message that we send to Duarte in the Philippines. That's the message that we are sending to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. It's a global message, and it's a dangerous message for the ultimate national interest and security of the United States. It's unconscionable in my mind.
Senator, your fellow Democrat, the ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Senator Jack Reed, is supporting a resolution to end U.S. support to end it for the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen. It's a resolution that could come to the floor for a vote as early as today. Where do you stand? Will you vote in favor of it?
I'm strongly supportive. I didn't support this resolution or a version of this resolution before because I wanted to give the administration the chance to show us that they were actually changing the course of events in Yemen. Tens of thousands have died. Our assistance has not produced less civilian casualties. Bombing a school bus with 25 children on board is not my idea of a better targeting process. So I will vote for the resolution, and I will insist that the global Magnitsky invocation that I, as the ranking Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and the chairman, have asked of the administration to specifically give us a determination on the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. I want to see what that results in.
So when Secretary Pompeo wrote this morning, again in that opinion piece, quote, without U.S. efforts, the death toll in Yemen would be far higher. Is he right?
No, I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and I regret that I gave them the benefit of the doubt. It has not produced less killing, and that's why the Saudi Arabia Accountability in Yemen Act that I have with Senator Graham and a whole host of Democrat and Republican sponsors is so critical, because we need to stop the refueling, we need to suspend arms sales to Saudi Arabia, we need to sanction those who are engaged in creating a humanitarian catastrophe in Yemen, as well as those who are supplying supplies to the Houthis, and to ultimately find the ultimate responsibility for the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi. That's what the legislation does, and that's what I hope we can get passed.
Senator, I want to turn to Russia now. As you're aware, Russia making what appears to be another territorial grab in Ukraine, international territory, attacking Ukrainian ships on their way to a Ukrainian port. Nikki Haley, Mike Pompeo, they've condemned Russian aggression. The president has not. Who does Vladimir Putin listen to? Trump or his advisors? And if he's listening to Trump, is he taking this as a signal it's okay?
Listen, Vladimir Putin listens to Trump, and he's convinced that the best bet he ever made was in the last presidential election, when he got involved in our national elections as determined by a whole host of U.S. intelligence agencies. President Trump cannot find a spine to stand up to Vladimir Putin in the national interest and security of the United States. The aggression that is going on in international waters against Ukraine is just another step of the aggression that Russia has shown, not only in the region, but in the world. And I hope that when he goes to the G20 summit this week, he'll find a spine to stand up to Putin, because we cannot have another Helsinki adventure.
But on that point, then, this is not the first time that the president has held his fire on Russia, of course, repeatedly on Russia's interference in the 2016 election. Do you have an explanation for why this president habitually refuses to unequivocally condemn Russian aggression and the Russian president?
There's no plausible explanation. There's no explanation that's in the national interest and security of the United States. Maybe Robert Mueller will ultimately give us that explanation.
Just to put a button on it, it sounds from your previous answer like you actually want the president to meet with President Putin on Friday and meet with him while he's at the G20. Is that right?
I want him to meet with him if he's going to stand up to him. If he's going to give us another Helsinki performance, forget about it. But I want to have him meet and stand up to him and say, this violation of the international order cannot continue. You cannot continue to interfere in our elections. There are consequences. And by the way, here's what I'm going to do right now in those consequences in terms of sanctions. And if you want to change the course of events, we can have a better relationship. But not for so long as you continue to have the aggression that you have against Ukraine, the annexation of Crimea, the constant cyber attacks against our country as well as other countries. Putin only understands strength, and what he has is a weak president responding to him.
Senator Menendez, appreciate you being here. We know you have a very, very big day, important meeting ahead. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.